Hey everybody, welcome back to the Dancing Sober podcast. I really appreciate your support. Please like and subscribe on YouTube. It really helps the channel. And please comment and rate on the audio platforms. I want to give a big shout out to our sponsors, Movita Juice Bar. Go to movitajuicebar.com to get some, order some juices or some smoothies. You can also order through their through your food apps like Uber Eats and etc. Shout out to Outer Circle Media, which is where we are sitting right now. They've been dope and letting us have our podcast here. I also want to do a small business shout out this week. This week I'm shouting out Milpa Grill in Boyle Heights. That's Milpa Grill with an E at the end. They are kind of like a restaurant that allows other pop-ups to come in there right now. And so that means that we should really shout out Macheen, Macheen. They have one of LA's best burritos, according to articles. And it's a really good burrito. I've had it more than once. They also have some amazing tacos. And also, the times that I've been there, the coffee pop-up, El Café by Primera, which makes my favorite Americano and my favorite pour-overs. So, that being said, don't forget to go to shoprafa.com, or if you're at my website, rafa.la, just hit the shop button. And our guest today is a friend of mine, fellow photographer, Felix Quintana. Let's get into it. Boom. Welcome back to the Outer Circle Media Studios. Today, in his house, we have Mr. Felix Quintana.
Yo, what's up, everyone?
A very good friend of mine.
Yeah.
Lately, you've been really busy, but
yes, sir.
So has Mr. Manuel Lopez, and you guys are, really blowing up right now.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, it's dope. It's so dope to see this.
Yeah.
And it's good to see you because I actually haven't seen you in a minute.
Yeah, it's been a minute. It's been a good minute.
Yeah. You've been running around town and running from the Rona,
trying to run away,
but also running errands because you're busy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just running, always running like Luis Rodriguez, right? Yeah.
It feels like I'm always running from myself. Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So Felix is a photographer.
Yes, sir.
That is your. I guess, is that the title you use, photographer? Because, I mean, you're such a multimedia artist.
Yeah, one time my professor said that I was a multidisciplinary photographer. Yeah. So I like to think about it like that. But I think truly I'm just an artist, who uses photography. And some people maybe won't even consider me a real photographer because sometimes I make images without a camera or I kind of incorporate like painting, but I still consider myself a photographer, at the end of the day, along with other, just strictly an artist, also educator, right? Yeah. So I feel like it all goes back to photography. Yeah.
You play with the camera.
Playing with the camera, yeah, like the instrument, But yeah.
You I want to get into a little more about your process later, but I always before I get into all that, I always like to start off where people grew up, because I don't know why it's always been a thing with me when I meet anybody. It's like, so where did you grow up?
Yeah. No, definitely.
It doesn't define you, but it also says a lot about your surroundings growing up, right?
Yes. Yeah, man. So, I grew up. I was born and raised in Linwood, California. So right there, St. Francis Hospital, which, was actually at one point like the only hospital that was around the area. So a lot of kids like from Watts, they didn't have a hospital, so they were born in Linwood, but maybe they grew up like it's pretty much, borderline Compton. For those of you that don't know, consider like in the Southeast LA area, right? Yeah. Which has been a new term, I feel like, within the past. Sela, exactly. So born and raised in Linwood. I lived in Cudahy for maybe like 6 months when we were like moving houses as a kid. But yeah, man, that was pretty much where I was born and raised till I was maybe like 17. And then I kind of took off to like Northern California, right, to study photography. And then, came back for a little bit. And then that's kind of where I met you, Rafa, in Boyle Heights, right? So yeah, no matter what, Linwood is still like a really special place for me.
So you grew up in the grind. I mean, it's one of those neighborhoods that's just grinding all the time, and there's always something going on. What high school did you go to there?
Oh, Linwood High School. Yeah, so I went to backtrack a little bit. I did go to pre-K, so I suggest putting your kids in pre-K. Yeah, man. Some of my earliest memories were in preschool, actually. That was my earliest memory. And then after that, I went to Mark Twain Elementary School. So it was just up the block, from me. And it's interesting, Mark Twain, being this writer, right? And then I went to Linwood Middle School, which the middle school used to be the old high school in Linwood, right? And then eventually, I went to Linwood High School. So, pretty much Linwood, all the way. Actually, I did go to 9th grade in Fireball High School, which was sort of like this new high school that they built only for like 9th graders. So, at one point I had to make a decision, sort of. It's kind of a crazy story, but I ended up kind of making the decision to finish high school at Linwood High School, which was like the big school,
Because you wanted to go to prom.
Well, it was, actually, I was kind of struggling a little bit, not going to lie, as a student at the time. And, in order to stay at that school where I was going in 9th grade, they felt like, I remember talking, this is probably a little too much information, but talking to the vice principal and her telling me, like, your grades weren't that great. So she was like, in order to stay at this school, you have to repeat 9th grade. And I was like, hell no, I'm gonna go to Linwood High School. And I was able to keep going.
Well, that's all good.
So it was interesting. Interesting times. Going there, man.
Sometimes we don't want to repeat.
Yes, exactly. We don't want to repeat, or certain standards, because I think that school was trying to be like an international baccalaureate, which was, there a lot of the people were really smart kids and that stayed. But a lot of my time in high school was like going back and forth between both schools, because I still had, half of my friends were in this school, the other half were in the other, but, they were like pretty close to each other. So I spent a lot of time, going back and forth, kicking it right there. Sometimes, getting what's the word, pocket checked, along the way. It was kind of like that, but that was just every day. Luckily, nothing ever happened to me like that, knock on wood, right? All my grandma always praying for me, watching out. So, but it was a trip.
Oh, that's crazy. And your parents, your family's from El Salvador, right?
Yeah. So, my family, both my mom and my dad separately came, to El Salvador. From El Salvador to LA, right, in the 80s, in 1984, which was actually the first year that the war started in El Salvador. And then they kind of met, in LA, like Southeast LA. So my dad arrived like in Huntington Park, was kind of like the center, right? So he had his first pad right there in Huntington Park. And eventually my parents met, actually like at a backyard party. So my dad said a story, like he saw my mom like across the way, and they met, and ever since then, But we always kind of stayed toward like Southeast LA, because a lot of my family was in Huntington Park, right? So that was always the case. So I grew up, Salvi, definitely in the Mexican kind of neighborhood, right? Aside from family and everything, it was pretty mixed.
It wouldn't be LA without the Mex.
It wouldn't, I had a lot, some, Mexican, black, neighbors. So like Linwood at the time was pretty, for the one, it was very white, before like that white flight happened. Then primarily, black residents, and then kind of more, brown residents that arrived. So at first, it was pretty mixed. I lived like in a little cul-de-sac area. So it was cool, like little block parties. And actually, I was lucky enough to go back to El Salvador a lot when I was a kid. So I went, like, I think when I was like 3 or 4 years old, my parents really made it a thing to take me back there.
That's something that my parents never did, and I wish I had, like trips to, like a lot of trips to Mexico. I mean, I've been to Mexico a couple times on my own, but I never had the family trip. And I mean, I know your family a little bit, but I've known you, for a while, so I know that you have a really tight family.
Yeah, definitely.
And I hope you don't mind me asking, but like, since your father passed away, how has that, like, I mean, it's kind of a dumb question, but like, I know that it's affected your work, or it's affected your
definitely.
It's definitely affected your mood. I was around with you during all these times, and so I just,
it's true.
I mean, I guess now we're gearing towards talking about the art, but if we could just get into that a little bit, like, speaking about your process, and how does something like that like affect you, just or even outside of art, like how does it
Right.
affect you and you know, as a person,
Right.
you know, without even talking
Yeah.
about the art, like if you don't mind sharing a little bit about
No,
that.
definitely not. I think it's important for us like to talk about these things, right? Yeah, but it's actually gonna be 5 years next month since my dad passed away, and yeah, it was really sudden, you know. But my dad was, you know, a bit going through like some health issues, right? He had like a stroke, so actually, yeah, he kind of got sick when I was finishing my undergraduate degree at Humboldt State. So yeah, there was a moment where I wasn't even sure if I was able to finish, you know, because things were getting intense. I was like way up north. But yeah, you know, it's been 5 years and it feels like just yesterday, you know, that it happened. Yeah,
Yeah.
it really does.
Yeah.
And yeah, I recently, you know, I've been
I
able
only
to
laugh because I've had some very
Yeah.
close deaths too, and they always feel like
yes,
no time has passed.
And I think for me that was the first big kind of like death in the family. So for it to be my father, man, like that was definitely hard.
He was definitely a hero in your life.
Yes,
So many ways.
Yeah, he was. Yeah. I mean, you would see him. He would go to the studio sometimes, kicking it, you know, or we would, you know, just be kind of like
you did things together.
partners in crime. Yeah, we hustled. You know, we were like
together.
we
You
were
helped them,
slanging
yeah.
stuff, you know, together. Not, you know, nothing crazy, but you know, doing little things. And yeah, I was his caretaker actually when I finished graduating from Humboldt State University. Yeah, I feel like I was the one who stepped in as that role. So yeah, I've been reflecting on that a little bit lately, like that I took that role as a caretaker, you know, and it was good because yeah, we were able to do everything together. But yeah, it was intense, you know, taking him to his, you know, to his appointments and all of that. But luckily, I was able to still work on my art, right? I got the studio space in Boyle Heights, you know, which is where we met. So I was able to still be flexible, you know, working with him. But yeah, you know, as I reflect back, I was able to kind of spend that time working on my art. But yeah, if I would have spent all that time with him, you know, if I could have, because I feel like there's so much that I still have questions about, right? Because my dad was very, I guess, didn't really talk much about how he grew up in his life. It wasn't until maybe like the last few months of his life that we really like talked about that stuff. So it's always like a big question mark. And I feel like for a lot of Salvadoran people, you know, that's a big thing that we go through. We're kind of in a way maybe ashamed or just don't want to tap into that trauma, you know, that happened. So yeah, there's a lot of unanswered questions, you know, that are still there. But yeah, he was definitely such an inspiring person. He was, you know, kind of came here working just like most other, you know, folks, like coming, you know, immigrating, whatever, working in a factory. So he worked actually like in a straw factory. So he was just doing, you know, being that cog in the wheel. And actually my mom, she was working in Encino, sort of as a nanny. So she had a nanny and she had a really good family that actually helped her get her papers. So they had a family friend that was actually a painter and kind of a commercial painter, right? So he also did like handyman businesses. And my mom talked to the guy and he was like, hey, my husband needs a good job. Can you help him? And the guy was really strict. He didn't, you know, he kind of worked solo, but he met with my dad and he liked him. He kind of, they hit it off. So he was able to work with my dad. You know, he went from making like, I don't even know, a couple bucks a day to making some good money, you know, so that was life changing. And so, yeah, he kind of, when that person retired, he passed all his clients to my dad, you know, so he had a lot of clients in Altadena, Pasadena. So I would often go with him. I was kind of like his assistant, you know. I wouldn't really help him with much, maybe just keep him company and stuff like that. But yeah, he really showed me what it means to like work for yourself, right? Being self-employed, hustling. And it was pretty good, you know, maybe until like around 2008 with the recession, right? Things got a little bit more slowed down. Yeah, man. So definitely, I was actually at the cemetery earlier this morning. Yeah, I was there with my partner Raven, and yeah, because you know a lot of stuff happening, you know, in life, and we just felt like we had to touch down and just kind of like you know pay our respects and you know and just kind of be there. So it's a trip. It's a trip to kind of be in that position, but. Yeah, I'll just say like one last thing too. I feel like lately I've been able to kind of write about my work and sort of thinking about the influences. But yeah, if I were to say one thing about my dad, like that he was really that compass for us, you know, the compass of like empathy, you know. I always think like what would my dad do in this situation? And it's like, all right, you gotta like hurry up and get yourself together, or maybe you gotta like, you know, just kind of thinking about, what would he do, right? What would Jesus do? Kind of.
What would Ye do?
Exactly, all that stuff. So yeah, man.
No, I feel you, man. You've always been a very thoughtful person, and I was there and saw, you know, a little bit of a transition of when you became just a little deeper, you know. It's just life, and it's interesting sometimes to see it from the outside as something that I had gone through, and
right.
But yeah. So in your art, you put a lot of yourself in it. You put a lot of your thoughts. You put a lot of your time into it, and
definitely.
That's something really interesting that I saw. With the other day, I was on a talk on a Zoom talk with VPAM and Star Montana.
Right.
Star Montana, and she was talking about how there was a photo that she like had been working on for 15 years, and I was like, wow, you know, just like mind blown that you can put that much time and dedication to something when like my work is like completely the opposite. It's like that fraction of a second when I see something, I snap it and it's done, and I put it away, and that's it.
So true.
And so just thinking about like the amount of time that you guys put into like one piece, and I see that in your work too, where you have certain pieces that you work on for a really long time, and you layer and that's something about your work that I admire a lot is the layers and the attention to the details. Tell us a little bit about that. Like why do you think that you work in that fashion? And I'm gonna just add a little more because I've seen you do it in Photoshop. Because Felix has this style that he when I first met you, that he was doing with shooting streaks of light. Streaks of light. And you would shoot hundreds and hundreds of photos, just gathering swirly lights, straight lights, blurry lights, focus lights. And then you would take these hundreds of different photos and then pick out little tiny parts of light and create drawings with those lights. Sometimes a Photoshop document would have, I don't know, hundreds of layers is what it looked like to
I would
me.
max out Photoshop. I couldn't save my files because they were too big.
And I would look at your work and I'd be like, Jesus Christ, how do you do this? Like, you know, so that's interesting. And now you've got into doing like the collage work, and which is similar in a way because you also hunt for images on the internet, Google Map images.
Using Google Street View.
You use Google Street View, and you take those images, you put them through a process, and you layer them and collage them, and then on top of that you draw, because that's another one of your talents, which is your unique style of drawing. I'm sure there are people in the past that also have drawn similar things. It's impossible to say that nobody's ever drawn like that, but I think I still see yours. You have your own touch to that particular style of drawing. So I mean, I said a lot. But if you could just walk us through some of that, like from Photoshop to collage and to drawing.
I think, where to start? I feel like for me, it really does start with just drawing and writing. You know, I think that's kind of like the foundation of everything, you know? So I think being a photographer, oftentimes you don't have to draw, right? You don't have to kind of have that, I guess, talent or special little touch. But I feel like, you know, when we make photographs, we're making like these light sketches, right? So for me, I was really kind of, nerding out on this idea of what is photography, right? So I think a lot of that comes from just maybe like an art historical context of other artists who have maybe questioned like, what is art, you know, and what is the purpose of art, especially at a time where, art can be commodified, you know, art can, be co-opted by government. Like there's so many possibilities for art. So I think like around maybe like 2012, I was still studying undergrad. I started asking myself that, like, what is the root of photography for me? You know, so if you break down, you know, the word, you know, photo meaning light, and graph, or, you know, that photography part meaning drawing, right, or writing. So I'm like, it's pretty much writing with light, you know? So I think I kind of took that quite literally, you know, and really started thinking about how I could really push things to the most extreme, you know? So in this case, when I was first making my early light paintings, right, they were very abstract. They were just, imagine like a Jackson Pollock, just kind of splatters of paint, but it was just light, you know? So for me, I really like this idea that, you know, visually it can look very abstract, or that there's nothing there, but actually it's carrying a lot of information, so like in each line there's like a car, moving, and there was me in that moment taking that photograph. So that is kind of really rich with like information, so yeah, I think a lot of my kind of inspiration in that regard like comes from just art history, studying art history, but applying those things like to photography, right? So I think for me it's all about that. Also experimentation. So I don't know why, but for me, I've always experimented with photography. Even in high school, I would always, if I was shooting film, like I would cross-process my film, right? So I would develop it in a different type of chemistry to get a different effect. And I always like that. I just like experimenting. Yeah, flipping it, but also, yes, that idea of flipping it, I think also, hip-hop for me is so important.
I was going to say that, but I'm glad you said it.
Yeah. So hip-hop, so this idea of sampling, right? Sampling from... instead of sampling from a soul or like a oldies, to make it into a beat, sampling from the world around you. And I feel like we already do that as photographers, right? We're already, kind of sampling from the world, but in this case, really chopping it up to make something new. So that's kind of what it was for me. Just wanting to always do something different and just keep that spirit. I think, I feel like this is how it relates maybe to like my family and that influence of that kind of rascuache feeling, like my dad, when he would build something, he would just do it, kind of thing without any like, and it would work, it would work. So I feel like, that was the same for me. But also paying attention, when I would show the work to my mentors, they would tell me like, damn, there's something here. You have to really push on this, it came through like a lot of iterations.
I love that when somebody sees like something that you're doing, but they can't define it yet because they haven't seen it.
Yeah.
And you're doing something that other people have done, this collage of lights, but somehow you're pushing something to another like intangible. Yeah. And that's what comes from you.
Exactly. I think like they say, right, that everything has been done before, yes, right? Yeah. But it hasn't been done through you, and your experience. And I feel like that's one thing that I learned sort of like as a student, and as a young artist, that everything, no matter if it's been done before, it hasn't been done through your eyes and your experience. So if you really just kind of like not worry about trying to make the best looking art or trying to follow trends, I feel like you can tap into some stuff and more into yourself. So honestly, that was the work that I needed to do first. When I was first working a lot in photography, I was doing more like self-portraiture, kind of looking at myself in that way, looking at my family. And I think in a way, like photography was like a process of healing, even though I didn't know it. It was a process of just kind of getting to know myself and my family. And I feel like, if I think about like after my dad passed away, it was a much more explicit, I guess like intrinsic process, of healing. Like the work, it didn't matter, if I showed in a gallery again, but it mattered to me that I made this work for a reason, like to kind of like heal in a way, So I feel like it definitely, I had to kind of like search within myself, to make the work and then be able to kind of, just go full force and experiment. I think that's also maybe like my flaw, wanting to try out many different things, instead of maybe focusing. So I feel like for me within photography, there's so much to do, right? I can make a photo collage, I can make a print, I can make a digital light painting, it's all possible within that, but within some like parameters, you know what I mean? Yeah.
I do think a lot of times we get caught in that, and like using the art as a healing process, just like, comedians use it as like a healing, use their stand-up as a healing process, a football player will get out there and like bump heads as a healing process,
Definitely.
And a boxer will, use the same thing.
Yeah.
And we do that sometimes. I can imagine, I mean, I'm speaking for myself, but I wonder if you also like, sometimes you do something as simple as a photograph with some aggression, with some
definitely.
deep-seated,
definitely.
Momentum that pushes you. So,
yes, definitely. Yeah, I think, with all that said, I think within my work, as you're talking like, about Star and how she was working on this piece for like 15 years, I think it's also like wanting to kind of question a lot of things, right, in the work. So, thinking that my artwork is not going to provide any answers necessarily, but just kind of like pose more questions and kind of pose this like curiosity. So being able to challenge that as well, because there is a lineage, right, and a history of people who have made stuff before you. And most likely like they don't want you to succeed or to beat them. So I think it's kind of like a game, you know, in a way, like we try to level up each other, you know, because then within our community, you know, we can sharpen each other in our eyes or in our work. So always trying to like push the gradient a little bit and kind of like butt some heads a little bit, right?
Steel sharpens steel.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So I think that that's kind of the idea. And I think also thinking about I guess thinking in a more conceptual way, right? So sort of like starting with an idea, so having that idea, you know, drive your work, and then finding out which is the best method, you know, to kind of like approach this. Like for me, when I'm making work maybe about like my family, right, this kind of diaspora that's happening, or the, you know, this kind of fragmented history, for me collage like makes the most sense, right? Because I feel like it goes hand in hand with our experience as Salvadorans, right, in Los Angeles. And, you know, maybe if I'm making work about, I don't know, different ideas, they fit different kind of like processes, right? So trying to think about it like that. Or maybe, you know, I need to make a video piece or straight up a performance, right? And that takes a little bit more bravery to do that.
Or some beats and rhymes.
Or some beats and rhymes,
Some poetry you've
honestly,
done.
I you know, a lot, definitely writing, you know, like I mentioned, has always been important. But I've been tapping into that more, and I feel like, damn, I could put aside 20 minutes, you know, and just kind of free form, freestyle, some poetry, and man, like it feels good. It feels really good, and it's kind of like it's very direct. So I've been trying to think about what's the power of like your poetry, like the imagery that you create just with writing, right? Paired with photography, and how that can be balanced, you know, to kind of, cause you know, a photograph is just it's just one photo. It could only do so much. But if you were to like add like a dialogue, you know, or you create a whole like mythology or like a history about one photo, it adds more meaning to it, you know, even if it's completely fake, even if it's fiction, you know. So trying to add like another layer, you know, because I feel like, photography, it's only one layer, right? But once you add writing, once you add other things, I feel like it can expand it a little bit more. And, you know, just trying to get the viewer in a little bit, because, we have to compete, you know, for people's attention now.
Mythology.
Yeah, so it's fun.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's some pretty deep, like, thought process that you take your head through just to, like, you know, come to a finished piece.
Right. I think one time Mario Barra, he was on the show. He thought about you know, our intellectual labor as artists, right? Because oftentimes we talk about our labor like it's a backbreaking work, but we don't think about like our intellectual labor. And we can't bill somebody, hey man, I spent 5 hours thinking about what I'm gonna do, you know, but we should, because we're a 24/7 process. And I feel like, that's why it's important for artists to take breaks, chill out, meditate, because otherwise your head will just keep going, ideas, you know.
What inspired you to get into like the blue and the cyanotype? The blue. I mean, the cyanotype is blue. So what inspired you? These are pieces that he did. I mean, for people watching on the video, he printed some pieces on coffee filters.
Man.
With the help of Christian. Right?
Actually, I made these little prints.
My first question was, how did you end up getting to like working? You went from digital to collaging cyanotypes,
right,
and drawing on top of them, or just printing cyanotype, and then drawing.
So this is kind of interesting, because
one little added thing, like, how did you get into the street maps or the street view?
And
then like
cool.
finding that, and then turning these digital images into negatives to make cyanotypes. It's a process.
Every little detail is like really thought out, you know, and like really conceptual in that nature, right? But I think it was like maybe 2014. I was actually taking a class, color photography class, and my professor was showing us a lot of contemporary photographers. And there was this photographer, Doug Ricard, who actually he passed away about a little while ago. But he was one of the first, I guess, photographers to use Google Street View way back like 2007, when like sort of like the technology came out. So he would actually, you know, rephotograph his screen and, make images, right? Large format images. He would photograph his screen with the like medium format camera and make beautiful prints, you know, of like the screen just doing his thing. And I saw that work, man, in my class, and I was like, you know what? To me, I initially felt like it was problematic, you know, because he was a white man, you know, sort of going through the Rust Belt, so like Detroit, and he was going through the grimiest of grimy hoods, you know, and trying to get the most grimy images, and he wouldn't do anything, just kind of rephotograph them, leave them as that, you know. And, for him, he felt like the work was not so much a portrait of like Google and surveillance, but it was about a portrait of America, right? And sort of America and where it's at. So I felt like, you know what, like that's a trip. Like he's not even using a camera, so I started kind of messing around with that myself. And my first kind of Google Street View experiments were actually way back in like 2013. So I've been thinking about this for a while, again. So like in 2014, I was like going through Google Street View and I was going on my block, which is in Linwood, right? I live on Alva Avenue, right? My house right there, where my mom still lives right now. And trip out, man, I found a photo of my dad in his truck.
Wow.
Yes. So my dad was just like about to make a left turn from the block, and he was in his truck. You could actually see him if you zoom in. He's like looking at the camera with his shades.
Wow.
Yeah, man, his little white truck.
He was probably like, what the fuck is that? Google car,
exactly. So, actually, I don't think I ever got a chance to show my dad that image because that was around the time that he got sick. Life happens. I never showed it to him. So that image really just kind of like brought me on a trip of just thinking like, about the layers of what's going on here, right? For one, like I feel grateful, that there's an image of my dad in this way. But also I feel like in general, kind of what's happening is, that people's images are being taken without their consent, right? It's a very much an objective, just going by, snapping photos. And I feel like, what that does, especially for like the image of LA, it kind of, like in a way, it's like a misrepresentation, the way that it exists as Google Street View, right? And I feel like, damn, like to them, these are just random people who happen to be on the street. Let's just blur out their photos. Blur out their face and we're good. But to me, it's like, damn, like that's my dad right there, and how grateful I feel for that photo. But I feel like there needs to be something more. So I've been thinking about this idea of like reclaiming those photos, right? So in a way, the same way that we can like maybe, say, for example, like in LA, right? There's often so many misrepresentations of LA, right? We think about sort of like the West LA, or like the beach, right? We don't think about maybe like East LA, or the images that exist are, sometimes, yeah, that can be like harmful, right? So I feel like it's important for me to say, you know what, I'm gonna just take these photos, sample these photos, right? And kind of like highlight moments that are actually beautiful, of like a daughter, and a mom like dancing in an alley, or like a person hustling, right? A windshield wiper, like trying to clean your windshield for a quarter, I feel like I was highlighting more like what I would see my experience. So if we go back, like thinking about that artist, right? Doug Ricard, who, I respect, he did his thing and he allowed me to kind of take that idea as well. He was someone who wasn't connected to the neighborhoods that he was photographing as heavily. So like what happens for me, being from Los Angeles, right, from Linwood, how can I add like something deeper to it? But it didn't finish there, it didn't finish there. So yeah, the reason again why I started this process, I had recently moved to San Jose, right, to go to San Jose State for my master's. So I was a little homesick, when I started picking up Google Street View again, right? So I felt like I had previously like photographed, a little bit around the city, thinking I'm going to stock up on these photos while I'm in grad school, but it just, I didn't have enough, So I felt like, hey, let me just go on Google Street View again and see what I could find. And actually at the time I was taking a class that was teaching us how to make cyanotypes by the artist Ben Don, who actually is an incredible photographer. And, Ben actually he invented a process called... He'd been printing, yeah, exactly, yeah. But he invented a process called chlorophyll print, where he actually made an image on a leaf just with the sun.
Wow.
Yeah, so, I took a class with him, and that's when I first started playing with this with the cyanotypes. And, again, I was kind of hungry for images and seeing what I could do. So I went back to the Street View, and, I was just kind of playing around, in a little bit, and... Yeah, just...
why did you start drawing on top of them? Because that adds the dopest layer to it, I think.
Yeah, man. So I think this is another moment, for any student or anybody out there, like when a mentor or somebody that you look up to, like tells you that you're onto something, you have to listen. So that was what happened with me, and I feel like I've had those moments in my life where someone's like, damn, like this is pretty dope. You should keep doing this. So, with the cyanotype, you actually have to brush, the stuff on, right? You could get it pre-coated, but usually you can get your paper, right, and like brush it on with like a foam brush or like a hockey brush, like a Japanese brush. So me, always having the habit of drawing, of tagging and stuff like that, I was actually with my brushing, And I swear, like, just out of instinct, I flipped it. I flipped the brush and just started, like, scratching into it. And I was like, oh, shit. And, I just, like, kept doing it with a few. And I showed my professor, and he was like, oh, wow, this is different. Yeah, so I just took off with that. And in a way, like, I actually figured out something that I've been trying to do for, like, a long time, which is how can I combine, like, mark making and drawing with photography? You know, because I tried to do that with some of my digital work, but I think there was just like a material issue. Like if I scratch onto a glossy print, it just doesn't feel good. Or if I draw with a Sharpie. But in this case, when I was scratching, you know, I also made that connection to like graffiti writers and when they like scribe, you know, scribers. So for me, that was like, this is perfect because, you know, cyanotype printing, right, being one of the first like photography processes, right? One of the earliest photography processes that was invented. So to me, like that's the root of photography, right? Like that's the most simple, affordable, just kind of humble, you know, process. And then with scratching, I feel like it's the same thing, you know. I feel like it's the most kind of like raw aspect of graffiti. You know, you're not even writing
like
anything.
Cave writing.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, you know, some of the earliest actually graffiti in LA was like found like from the 1940s, where people would actually take like a lighter soot, like the soot from lighters to like tag, you know. So yeah, I just kind of meshed the two, you know, and man, but I was trying to do that for a long time.
You just gave us gold. That's a lot of gold for all you young artists out there listening.
Man.
Like that's a lot of process that you just shared with us.
A lot. So, but luckily, you know, I had mentors there. And not gonna lie, it was tough, you know, because I was a grad student. I was taking the class with undergrads, and they were like, what the fuck, Felix? You didn't even take these photos. Like, this isn't even your art, you know, you're just using Google. But my professor was loving it. He was like, no, this is great, you know? Yeah. Because it's more about the images, like an image maker and also a storyteller. So I didn't even have to pick up a camera per se, but I was documenting and photographing just in a more conceptual, like, in my digital kind of.
And it's not that you don't know how to take a picture. You are exactly. A photographer. So
yeah, I mean, I have 2 whole ass degrees.
Just pushing the envelope a little bit, I think.
Yeah, you know. And also, I think around that time, I was kind of being more interested in like an archive, right? So like just thinking about kind of like the layers of an image. Like if I take that photo, that's going to say a lot about me. You know, if I take a photo of my coffee cup or whatever, if I take a selfie, that's like my instinct, you know, and it reflects of who I am, you know, and we don't realize that photography, like it'll show us what you're interested in, right? But in this case, by taking a photo that already existed, it's kind of like a ready-made photo, you know? So, you know, the artist Marcel Duchamp, who like kind of took, you know, the toilet, right? So it's the same idea, but with photography, you know, by a photo that already exists and just flipping it. And I think when that way, like, I've heard other artists talk about it, like that image has a history, you know, it has a history, it's existed, but now like I'm able to take that and in a way like remove myself. Because sometimes I feel like when we're too close to our work, it can be sort of like emotional, or it can be, by removing myself, but then putting myself back in, you know, so a lot of layers.
It's very you.
Yes, yeah.
At the same time,
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, just trying to do something,
I think it's like you're mining for like raw material, and then you use the material to create your art.
Yeah. So,
I want to go back a little bit, just because you've been talking a lot about your professors and stuff, and
right.
I know that after you graduated from high school, you went to Humboldt.
Yes.
And then ended up in San Jose.
Yes.
You took a little break. That's when we met. And then you went to San Jose for your MFA.
Right.
But how did first Humboldt shape you and then San Jose shape you as an artist?
Man, yeah. So, you know, when I went to Humboldt, I was I feel like committed to photography already. You know, I was like 17, you know, when I went. And it's a trip because I was not on the track to go to college, Rafa. Like, I was not, man. I was a bad kid.
I can't even imagine that.
Yeah, dude. Exactly. Yeah. So that wasn't me. I was, I feel like I would just bounce around, you know, and I was into photography and graffiti, you know, and music, right? And just kicking it and just being out.
Blazing.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Once that, it was over, you know. I feel like I just again, like those little moments in your life that just tell you, like, try this out, you know. So yeah, I ended up in Humboldt at the age of 17, right? So I was up there, and right away I was lucky because I found a mentor, like right away. It was actually a professor, Don Gregorio Anton, who's from East Los Angeles, actually.
East Los?
Yes, East Los. Kind of grew up like in Pico, born in East LA, but kind of grew up in Pico area. And for some reason he just, you know, He ended up at Humboldt State. Actually, the year that I was born in 1991, that's when he started working there. And the year that I graduated was when he retired.
Wow.
So yeah, man, it felt like a special.
He was waiting for you, bro.
He was waiting for me. Yeah, we've had this conversation, and he said, yeah, he was waiting for a
trip.
student like me, And I was lucky because my first semester I got to take a class with him, and yeah, he would tell me sort of like how I was as a student. Like my hair had really, curly hair, and I was like covering my face. Yeah,
really
huge fro.
Yeah, it was dope.
Yeah, but I think I was very much like a shy kind of student. But I think through his class, and through just being able to kind of like finally express myself in a way, I kind of came out of my shell, and I think he really helped kind of facilitate that, experience. So I still, keep in touch with him to this day, and felt like, he kind of set like a really good example just, as an artist, because I feel like his work is like not like anything you'll ever see, it's different. And he himself, talked about how, there was like some regrets about sort of not being able to document East LA as much as he could, because we have back in the 70s, or like the 60s when he was sort of around there. But his work took a different path, he ended up kind of being more kind of like inside, People consider him like a very much a photographer who's able to tap into like the raw human emotion. So I feel like that showed me that there's more to this than just, a simple photo,
documentary
like
or journalistic.
But that's still kind of like, again, like another foundation. But because you go back and forth, by feeling like I need to document my city. But also like, what about you? Like, what about myself? And how can
it's your journey, wherever your journey takes you. Yeah, I totally agree with that.
Yeah. So definitely when I was in Humboldt, kind of the conversation starts like, so what's going to happen? Like after you graduate, you know what I mean? And for me, that was, talking with my professor, he always really encouraged me and kind of instilled the idea that like teaching is like one of the kind of best routes that you could take as an artist, right? Because, we need institutions like to support us. And I kind of like, that kind of like became like, ingrained in me that I need to go to grad school, so that was always a process like, Felix, grad school, what's up with that portfolio? Like, how's the portfolio coming along? He didn't get off my case until I had a solid portfolio, So that was my mission when I graduated, right? Moving back to LA. Yeah, man, I had plans through my professor to intern at the Foto Museo Cuatro Caminos, which is in Mexico City.
That sounds like a good beer, though.
Yeah, no, it's dope. Caminos. Yeah, I think it's closed now. But yeah, man, after Humboldt, I had plans to possibly move to Mexico City. My professor kind of guided me in that way. But, my dad got sick. So I had, not that I didn't have a choice, but I needed to go back home, And that's why I was in LA, right? And actually through Humboldt, they actually acquired one of my pieces. Little humble flex right there. But more importantly, they acquired one of my pieces for their permanent collection, and I got a little stipend because of that. And that's how I was able to afford the first studio,
Wow.
So I was like, I need to like do something with this money. I can't just spend it on weed or, Tams, or anything like that. So, yes.
Tams representing,
man. Number 9.
Yeah.
Linwood.
That's dope, dude.
So, yeah, man, like everything really worked out.
You guys have Tams, we have Toms.
Exactly. Or gyms.
Or gyms, yeah.
But
I wanted to go back a little bit because you said that going to school and having this professor helped you remove your shell, and and I want to like maybe find out a little bit more, or if you can give us like elaborate on that shell. Like, was it like the hood? Was it like machismo? What was it that you dropped? What was it that you just like shook off?
Yeah, I think it's just maybe just changing, I guess, being out of my comfort zone, because being from LA, like going to Humboldt was like radically different, man. It was so different. And
beautiful out there.
Yeah, it's so beautiful. But yeah, I think all of that, like you're saying, and just feeling like, honestly, if I'm being really honest, at a certain point, I felt like I was just really just not smart, bro. Like, I felt like I was dumb. Like, I'm talking to other people, I never really met so many white people in my life. I just felt like, damn, I'm really ignorant. Like, I'm from the hood. I don't know anything, So I feel like so many of my kind of my roommates and other like raza that was out there, they felt the same way, you know.
Yeah.
They felt a little bit just belittled by being.
That's what art culture clash is like, when we get hit by like how other people talk. In those areas.
Exactly. You look different, you dress different, you know.
Yeah, like I was thinking about this just the other day, how like when we grow up, we're just like, yeah, Holmes, all right, whatever. But and then you go around these groups of people that speak in complete sentences and have actual like thoughts and their perception of things, and then they want to know yours, and you're like, what?
For sure.
You get stuck.
Yeah.
I've definitely had that when I was younger myself.
Yeah, so I think it was a lot of that, you know, and also, again, like if I'm being really honest, you know, vulnerable, just myself, like my body, like my image as a bigger person, you know, as a bigger guy. I feel like there was a lot of things that I didn't really think about, or I never had to, you know, I had my friends, they accepted me for how I was in high school. But when you go to a new place, like you kind of feel a little bit more like insecure, you know, about that. So I feel like those were the things that my professor was like really eager for me to explore, and like felt like it was such like an untapped potential, you know, to kind of gain that confidence. And, you know, a lot of those things happening, right, that kind of provide that insecure kind of feeling, you know, but that was actually something I was able to work through and tap into like within my work. And that's work that I probably won't ever show anybody, right? Wow. Self-portraits right there, you know, in the studio. You know,
I'll get a look.
You'll get a look. Yeah, I have some. But yeah, man, I think it was that, but also never, again, like just never being able to talk about such like heavy things, you know, as like how you feel about yourself, you know, or maybe certain things that your family was going through. You know, my brother, I love him, my little brother. At the time, you know, he was coming out as a, you know, as a queer man, you know, as a gay man. So literally, like in my photos, you would feel that weight that he had, you know. So those are things that we were going through, like as a family, you know, and all those things I was able to finally talk about to like complete strangers, you know. And I remember one time I had a critique. I was showing some photos that I had taken, you know, from LA, bringing them to Humboldt. And my professor, he was in tears, man. He was in tears that I made him cry because the work was just so heartfelt, but mainly because he saw me speak. Like he finally saw me like break out of that shell, you know. And for him to see a student do that who was once just like caved in, and I was empowered. I feel like, everything changed, you know, from that moment. Just finally being able to kind of like confront your fears. No fear. Yeah, just and then
beautiful to have that.
It
no
is.
fear. Yeah,
it is.
So
It helped me a lot. I needed that. So luckily, like I saw the power of what teaching can do, you know, for me, what it did for me, right? What art can do as well. Like, man, it can really kind of help, like, with that self-esteem, everything. So,
and now you get to teach.
Yeah, and now I get to teach. Yeah.
You first you were a TA in San Jose, right?
Yes, I was like a TA like in Humboldt too, and I was teaching at San Jose State. And between that, actually, I worked as a teaching artist for about over the past 5 years, working at different continuation schools around LA, through ArtworxLA, Slanguage Studio,
Slanguage
Las
in the
Fotos
house.
Project. Man, just always hustle.
Yeah, the artist hustle when you're a young artist. Yeah,
yes.
You gotta get those $50 checks, $100 checks.
I know,
like
man.
all those little checks, they add up,
They add
but
up.
that's a lot of Tams burgers.
Yes. Oh, yeah, man. Exactly.
But you ended up, you came back to Los Angeles because you got offered a job at UCLA.
Yeah, man. So
I was so proud of you. I'm still proud. I mean, I'm proud of you for like, that was a big movida, and
it was,
dope to see you being at UCLA as a professor.
That was incredible. Yeah, this past quarter I got to teach over there at UCLA
as a guest teacher. How does that?
As a guest lecturer. It was actually a brand new class that they introduced. So it was a class actually within the art education department.
Can you tell the story of how it came to be? Because I remember you said something about you spoke at the Hammer.
Yeah, so shout out to the Hammer Museum and also a Residency Art Gallery.
Shout out to Rick.
Yeah, shout out to Rick. What's up, man? Yeah, so pretty much, Rick included me in an exhibition at Residency, right? And these are these cool stories that people don't really talk about. Like, how did this get to this? But I love talking about network. Yeah, so Rick actually had hosted the Hammer Museum to come by and see our exhibition, and honestly, I was so nervous. There's some badass curators, right? Aaron Cristoval, Vanessa, Ike is another badass curator, right? So, they really just connected with the work, and, we stayed in touch. After that, just staying in touch. And I was talking to Vanessa, who was a curatorial assistant, I believe. And she was asking me what I was up to. I told her I was teaching actually at that moment in San Francisco. And she was saying like, oh, that's awesome. Like some of my colleagues are looking for someone, to actually kind of do a workshop / talk for this professional development program at the Hammer Museum. So yeah, every summer they have a professional development for teachers who want to like incorporate new methods and like new things into their teaching. So yeah, alongside like a UCLA professor, actually, we both contributed to a section that was all about like media and media literacy. So I kind of gave like a brief like workshop example about how we can like use digital art, and accessible art to sort of talk about media and like how do we process media. So this was in 2020, at a time where we're being like inundated with so many like photos of just things that are happening on the street, So so that's kind of the workshop that I was doing and that I gave. So through that workshop, it's kind of how the connection, between UCLA came up because the director of one of the programs for the visual and performing arts education program, they partner with the Hammer Museum quite a bit. So he remembered me. He remembered that workshop, and one day out of the blue, he was like, "Hey, Felix, I'm still thinking about your workshop, and man, like, I don't know if it's a long shot, but I want to bring you on to teach this class. I think you would do great." And in the moment, I was still, in the Bay Area, finishing up. Yeah, exactly. So, but we made it happen, and they were able to kind of, pull some strings for me to make it happen to teach the class. Man. So just those little connections that you make that can, always kind of like, making that impression, being yourself. So that's kind of how that came about.
I love that. You've not even graduated yet, and they're already like pulling you down.
Yes, that was a trip. Not gonna lie.
All these universities out there now, don't sleep.
No, don't sleep.
Don't sleep because this kid's gonna get a job somewhere and lock it in.
Yeah, I'm hoping. My dream. Putting that out into the universe to get like
definitely.
a full-time job, like here in LA.
I think that's something that's been in your stars since the day I met you, because you told me that the first time that we met, and it wasn't like it came into the air more like something that already exists. Like it wasn't like I think I'm gonna do that. It was like a fact that you're gonna be a professor one day. So man, congrats on all that. It's really exciting to see you. It's really exciting to see you maneuver and meet people and get in the biz.
Yeah.
As well as your personal growth as a person and in your relationship and in your life and in your working self, which is also a different part of us, and the jobs that we do are a big part of us.
Definitely.
I know that you are for the people listening to this, it's going to be on Friday, and you're going to be in San Francisco that day because you have something happening up there.
Yeah, so I'm excited. I have an artist talk actually happening this Friday, and it's through an organization called Photo Alliance, which is in San Francisco, and they've been putting on artist talks, based on like photography, focusing on photography. So the talk is in conjunction with an exhibition that's opening at San Francisco State University. It's been a long overdue show. It got pushed back a little bit because of COVID, and stuff like that. But so I'm gonna be a part of that show. It's featuring mainly photographers who sort of work with like alternative process photography, with cyanotype and different, daguerreotype on the glass plates and stuff. So I'm really excited, for the talk. It's it's kind of a big deal, I guess.
The young master out there.
So
I'm sure you'll be surrounded by some old folk doing some of this stuff, but
this week I've been kind of getting ready for the talk, thankfully I'm able to pull a lot of material kind of from my thesis book that I wrote last fall. So that's pretty dope. But honestly, it's going to be cool because it's going to be sort of like a performance, borderline hip hop, borderline performance, borderline talk. I'm just going to snap off, just trying to think about that. Like really pushing the gradient,
Well, I hope you record it.
I hope so. Yeah, I'm not sure. But it'll be in person. It's going to be at the San Francisco Art Institute, actually.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's cool. It feels like a nice, just opportunity. And I'm just glad that they, they reached out. They reached out to make it happen. So So yeah, I'll be doing
it
that on
always
Friday.
feels good to get those calls.
It does. It does. Yeah.
Oh, people are saying my name in different circles, you know?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah. So it's definitely another one of my goals, actually, to, you know, even though I'm back here, home in LA, to like kind of maintain a relationship in the Bay Area. And there's a lot of history with photography out there, a lot of galleries. So, you know, just trying to always maintain that contact. A lot going on. So
that's dope. I want to congratulate you on everything that you're doing and all the accolades coming your way.
Yes.
Before we round up, is there anything you want to bring up or anything else that we didn't shout out or?
Let me see. Nah, man. Well, maybe this, just kind of quick shout out. I've been reading this book right here. It's by Roberto Lovato called Unforgetting. And yeah, man, I just really love this book. It's kind of talking a lot about just, just the Salvadoran experience in LA, San Francisco, and talking about this term called unforgetting. You know, this idea that often we forget on purpose. Like, we don't want to remember certain aspects of our life, but it's a process of unforgetting, like kind of actually remembering and like remembering not to forget. So it's just a beautiful book. And it's really been helping me a lot, like as I think about my work, you know, in advance. So
shout out to Robert.
Yeah, shout out, man. Yeah,
Robert Lovato.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So also I guess I just want to give a quick plug. I'm actually gonna be it's gonna be a few months down the line, but I'm gonna be working with Residency for a solo exhibition. Yeah. So that's gonna be hopefully coming up around June. So I'm really excited to kind of show some of my work for my thesis exhibition that I made, and just kind of like, you know, kind of like a homecoming. It's been like 5 years since I've had a solo show in LA. My last one was at Espacio. Shout out Espacio, 1839.
You came straight home and went to work, so it's perfect timing right now for you to have this exhibit.
It feels like a really good homecoming,
and for it to be a Residency is
right. I really
it's a big deal, bro.
It's dope. I really love Residency. You know what they do for us. You know, just for the homies and, you know, for Black and Brown, you know, artists, POC artists. I couldn't imagine like a better spot, you know, to do it.
Inglewood and the Rams.
Yes, Inglewood. Yes,
nothing to do with the Rams, but
man. So just keep a lookout for that, and just trying to just keep it going. I think for anyone.
Shout out your website and your Instagram.
Yes, my website is felixquintana.com. Instagram at FelixFQuintana. And for anyone, I always say, like, feel free to reach out, man. Like, I don't want to, you know, I guess like the whole gatekeeping kind of thing. Like, I would love to just share it, man. However I could help, you know. Yeah,
that's dope. There's a question that we ask everybody at the end of.
I thought about this one actually.
Of the show. And since you already know, I don't have to explain it to you. But Felix Quintana, how do you do it?
So I was thinking about this, right? And I think I just do it with love, man. With love. Yeah, always with love. Just love, man. Just a lot of love and for real. Con puro amor, and that's the only way. I've been thinking about that a lot, you know. Especially, not to get all deep and everything, but you know, the way that kind of we get, the way that we were viewed, especially for like as Salvadorans, you know, in Los Angeles, it's often we're kind of viewed with this like terror or like a lot of like bad things in association. So I really want to challenge that, like in my work, you know. And when you think about, you know, salvias, you think love, you know. So everything that I do, I always put in that first.
That's good.
If I were to say a second answer, it's always like with empathy as well, you know. Putting yourself in other shoes, right? And just trying to be cool, man. Make the world a better place.
Being an understanding person.
Yeah.
Well, Felix, thank you so much for coming down here.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Yeah.
And we'll see you guys next week.
All right. Peace.